The bombs will not be dropped by me or any of the idiots at that meeting. I believe there is another player at the table. As you see, I live my life by one simple maxim. The house always wins, right? What if I'm not the house? What if someone else is? And I don't like unknown variables.
Who ends the world? Is it you?
Weddings are now 0 for 2 in Fallout and not really inspiring the rest of us to get started anytime soon. That being said, if you're Canadian or even Steph Harper herself and maybe are looking for a green card marriage, we could prove that third time's the charm.
What is that?
Either way, we finally get confirmation on my previous Steph Harper theory in regards to her either being an Enclave or a Canadian insurgent, and we get a peek into her backstory in this episode, and we see Steph as she escapes a Canadian internment camp, which boy, what an inconvenient time to prove that life really does imitate art. Stay safe out there, y'all. Either way, Steph's backstory does sort of explain her absolute disregard and disdain for any of the vault dwellers or anyone she deems American, and it seems the busier she gets, the harder it is to keep up that friendly facade. I also find it interesting that her neglect of Chet ends up being her downfall. Since the beginning of the series, Chet has been a completely spineless coward unless he's around Lucy, in which case he's willing to go up to the surface and embrace the wasteland for her. Still, even Norman called out his cowardice in the last season, and Chet is someone who's very subservient and non-confrontational, letting himself be pushed around and bossed around and barely putting up a question in return. Yet despite his journey, he finally steps up and in a pretty clever way, making sure he has witnesses to go ahead and announce that Steph is not only 200 years old,
She's Canadian. Canadian.
but this does beg the question, what does Steph want inside of Hank's lockbox? And does what transpired officially ruin the deal they had with Vault 33 and their water supply? In my opinion, one of these vaults is going to end up facing the same outcome we saw Vault 32 face last season, where everyone was pretty much starved like rats.
Mice fight for one's bountiful food, for one's endless space. They eat each other in their desperation to survive.
Could Season 3 explore everybody fighting and killing each other to survive? Either way, Congresswoman Diane Welsh makes a return in this episode and actually has quite the interesting journey throughout it. Her connection and previous experiences with Cooper are what leads him to directly taking the decisions he takes in regards to cold fusion. Cooper deciding that it's better to try to save the world, that way they don't really need to worry about the vaults, is a much better mission to target, and in turn decides that he's going to take cold fusion and provide it directly to Mr. Krabs.
Ahoy, SpongeBob! I've overdosed on ketamine, and I'm going to die.
I mean, the President of the United States. And Fallout fans know this means the Enclave now has access to unlimited power, which could potentially explain why they're so prominent in the early games, as there are future presidents of America post the bombs dropping representing the Enclave. Fallout fans do finally get their first look and reveal of who was president during the time of the bombs dropping, which up until this point was left unknown, and knowing that the ghoul or Cooper has kind of been around the wasteland, it's very likely that he's at least heard of the Enclave. And this could also explain why he's a bit bitter, knowing that some of the atrocities the Enclave committed was only possible because he supplied them with unlimited power. Potentially, this could even provide further encouragement to join up with the mutant rebellion. Still, this does leave you to wonder about Diane Welsh. While she is working directly for the president, there's still not confirmation on exactly what moral alignment she possesses. Sure, she could just be manipulating Cooper and have popped up in all the sequences throughout the story specifically to trick him, or she could actually be a well-meaning individual who the Enclave placed at all those places to specifically manipulate Cooper, herself being another pawn of the system. This would make sense as literally at the end, her very head becomes the mainframe for the system Hank is using to control everybody. Controlling everybody being something that the Enclave has always been after since the very beginning. And should Hank be connected to the Enclave like I've theorized about, then I could actually see this theory playing out. Either way, we catch back up with the ghoul, Maximus, and Thaddeus as he ends up leading them to a weapon stash of some kind. It's here Thaddeus tries to bond with the ghoul and maybe understand more of his symptoms and what he's going through. However, the way things play out for him this episode, I actually don't think Thaddeus is turning into a ghoul at all. It's very possible he's turning into a different monstrosity altogether. But let me know if you have any interesting theories on what this creature could actually end up being. Either way, it makes me sad as I actually really enjoy Thaddeus, and that moment with the arm this episode killed me.
Maybe you should hang back this time, Thaddeus.
You sure?
Your arm fell off.
This cuts to Maximus and the ghoul discussing what they want to do with cold fusion, with Maximus planning on giving cold fusion to someone good like Lucy. And I find the ghoul smirking here pretty funny as he sees himself in Maximus and his decision making. And now he's following the same story arc and trying to provide cold fusion to someone good. Does this mean that him providing it to the ghoul will end up just as badly as the ghoul providing it to the president? Only time will tell. But as they arrive at the weapon stash, we get to see where Maximus' story will likely take him. See, this weapon stash isn't just some random place. It seems to be an NCR specific weapon stash, where Maximus actually gets his hands on some NCR level power armor, returning to his Shady Sands roots and marching through Freeside to do what's right. And it's also interesting to see how the Freesiders' reaction to him strolling around. If there's ever going to be an NCR resurgence like I explained in my Maximus video, then this is definitely the spark of the flames that will hopefully be their return. Still, in regards to this weapon stash, doesn't anyone else have any interesting theories for why Cooper has access to all this or even knows where it is in the first place? And why any other NCR members haven't been anywhere near it? In my opinion, this could potentially be proof that this is Cooper's old stash from his old days when he used to partner up with the NCR. There's even some theories out there that he himself could be the courier, which there needs to be more evidence for in my opinion, but I like the theory. Either way, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the NCR are due for a very heroic comeback. And like them or hate them, I could easily see why some folk, especially in Freeside, are big fans. Unlike some other folk, like that of Hank McClane, who compares them to that of the Legion. While both factions are fun to argue about and choose while you're playing the games, there's an obvious moral right and moral wrong when comparing the two. And I love how Lucy just simply throws that logic directly back at Hank's face.
One side is murdering people, enslaving them, crucifying them, and the other side is just vaguely problematic.
And before I talk more about Hank, I did want to also highlight how awesome that Maximus versus Deathclaw fight was and how good it was to hear the Fallout theme when he found the power armor. Either way, Lucy and Hank throughout this episode have some very sweet bonding moments before eventually shit does hit the fan. See, Lucy can see the benefit in straight up mind controlling a faction as brutal as one like the Legion, as opposed to maybe imprisoning them or straight up killing them. So while there is some sort of argument to make there in regards to the controlled side of this war, I think Lucy seeing some of the NCR throughout this episode and how little of them there is left, accompanied by her dad's very nihilistic and black and white view of all the factions in the wasteland, she decides to trick her father and attempt to make an escape down to the mainframe to free everybody. It's here she ends up finding Diane Welsh's head wearing the same mechanism that we see House wearing when he's talking with Cooper and we've seen throughout the games as well. Still, we can't be too sure if this head is actually Diane working for the Enclave and actively controlling all of the microchipped people, or if to run this sort of experiment and make people subservient and kind, Hank needed to wake up somebody who maybe was subservient and kind like Diane Welsh. Either way, this definitely has me worried for my girl Lucy because next episode, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen any of the promos, we can see there's a moment where Hank is sort of holding out a very, very tiny microchip. And unless this is some sort of weird offering type of deal, I think this is him revealing to Lucy that he's already chipped her. And this does seem like the kind of thing him as a father would do. It would really suck to see Lucy survive so much of the wasteland and not lose herself and all that, only to lose herself to her very own father. And with all these different factions, from the NCR to the Legion to the New Mutant Uprising to the Enclave to potentially even the Canadian Insurgency, we do finally have the building of a faction I personally will be rooting for throughout this story in Mr. House's revival. See, Cooper Howard, using the cold fusion Maximus gave him, is able to go inside the Lucky 38 and officially bring House back to life. But notice the environment here. The way everything's set up should indicate that this is actually proof of the Yes Men ending in New Vegas. Meaning, potentially at the end of New Vegas, the courier and some of the robots around ended up taking control, but weren't rebuilt or fortified enough to be able to maintain their control over Vegas. After losing said control, it's very possible that there was a rotation of different leading factions.
Like one of the merry-go-rounds. NCR Legion, NCR Legion. Fucking robots.
And then eventually down the line, somehow Deathclaws made their way into Vegas onto the Strip. Or potentially were placed there specifically. Many reasons as to how, whether they are Deathclaws who are intelligent and maybe made a deal with Hank, which is unlikely, or they are Deathclaws microchipped and under his control. This wouldn't be the first time someone potentially part of the Enclave would utilize Deathclaws in this way. Further evidence to the Yes Men ending would be showing one of the photos from the end of the episodes and revealing Mr. House's pod with a hand hanging out of it. It seems despite that fact, House officially lives on through the power of cold fusion. But don't get it twisted, this House is definitely not the original brain of the original person. In my opinion, this is actually just a replicated version of Mr. House's mind put up into sort of a AI algorithm.
See, I live my life by one simple maxim.
The house always wins, right?
And it does. I'm making sure of it, using every single piece of technology at my disposal.
Either way, this would keep his Achilles heel of having a frail body out of the picture. And this could also set up a potential future in finding a new body, potentially as a synth from the Institute. As for anyone who's curious, House actually did study at the CIT, or Commonwealth Institute of Technologies. So if anyone's gonna know how to make a synth outside of the Institute, it would be House. Or potentially this could be a narrative tether to Season 3. Either way, now that Cold Fusion is within the Lucky 38, that makes House and New Vegas a prime target for many factions throughout the Wasteland, like not only the Brotherhood of Steel, who are going through their own civil war, but also the Enclave, who are the only other powerhouse of a faction that could potentially put all these other factions to rest throughout the Wasteland, with the only thing potentially being capable of stopping them and being the many numbers of mutants that surround the Wasteland, as quantity is really the only thing that can stop overwhelming power. And this mutant army seems to be only potentially getting bigger with Norman's storyline. Now I have a Norman video I'll be dropping this week where I'll elaborate on this theory, but for now I'm worried my boy's gonna get thrown into a vat of FEV and be turned into some kind of mutant. Preferably a super mutant, but when it comes to FEV, anything could go down. Either way, I just had to make a video on this episode because I really enjoy the way they're setting up the different narrative arcs and all of the many potential directions the stories could take. I really do enjoy the fact that they are giving respect to all of the factions and trying to pay as much attention to the lore as they can. But how do you feel? Did you enjoy this series or even this episode as much as I did, or do you wish there was a little bit more? Either way, if you enjoyed the video, liking, subscribing, commenting, all that stuff really helps out, especially if you want to see more. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your guys' day and stay safe out there.
200 years of planning in order for everything to go just right. That seems like a lot of work if you ask me.
Obsolescence. It's a heck of a thing. You know, I try and see it from your perspective. But it's hard to imagine being so dim as to be caught off guard by the inevitable.
Plans are hard. Chaos, though. Chaos is easy.
Power. More than all of human history could ever consume.
Okie dokie.
Patrolling the Mojave almost makes you wish for a nuclear winter.